Well, Rita and James, all the leaderships are happening this week. Very exciting. Both Matt Canavan is going for the Nationals leadership. Let's talk about that first, Rita.
Yes, overdue. I think it's precisely what we need to see from the Nationals. The Nationals did well at this election campaign, unlike their coalition partners who did horribly. As we've been talking about, it's kind of amusing to hear the likes of the Greens talk about the Liberals becoming MAGA, extremist right, Trumpian. When the Liberals went into this election with smaller Liberal policies where they were Labor-lite, this is what their biggest donors are telling them and saying, we're pulling our money out because if we wanted a Labor-lite political party, we've already got one. We don't need another imitation of Labor.
They got two. They got the Teals as well.
Yeah, so this... Every time the Liberals go into an election, whether it's at state level or federal level, and they run on smaller Liberal policies where they try to veer to the centre or to the left, and they get absolutely smashed, the advice from the political pundits is, oh, well, you're too far right. You need to go more left. It is incredibly just asinine. We see it every single time. We've seen it in Victoria last 3 elections. And let's hope they learn the lessons and we don't have another smaller Liberal, moderate, Malcolm Turnbull-esque in a skirt leading the Liberal Party. Matt Canavan, I think, is precisely what the Nationals need, and it will give them some clear policy direction, particularly when it comes to the crucial issue of net zero.
Absolutely. James.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm glad, Rita, that you mentioned the Nationals and their performance in this election, and I'm glad that you mentioned Malcolm Turnbull, because to me, there's a great analog between what just happened here and 2016.
Yes.
The Liberals did not lose government, but they barely hung on. And they only hung on, and it killed Malcolm Turnbull through his entire premiership, that only with the fact that the Nats held every single one of their seats, and the Liberals went way backwards. And that's exactly what we had happen here again, but just to a more extreme version. Now, Peter Dutton, let's be fair to him, he's no Malcolm Turnbull, right? Let's
He tried at this election.
Well, he tried maybe a little bit, but the problem was that there was no articulation of clear liberal values. And the thing is, liberal values are actually very straightforward. They're about liberty, they're about aspiration, they're about, sensible policies that help people get ahead, and it's about people making their own choices in their own life rather than, as the Labour and the Albanese government say, the government has to be with you at every step of your life. And so these are not complicated things. They're not hard to articulate. But my real worry here for the Liberals is that, they're going to take, as you suggested, Rita, entirely the wrong lesson from this. And they're going to go and they're going to say, oh, well, we need to have less and less difference between us and Labour, who has now got the chance to set the dominant narrative in the country, which is very dangerous. And I mean, Rowan, look, you come from the world of advertising. Product differentiation is what you need. And in a preferential system, in a country with a voting system like ours, there really needs to be clear air. If you go down this sort of small L liberal route where you just try and be all sensible centrist and to figure that the voters will be attracted to you, not the other people, well, you wind up in the situation as, say, Mark Speakman is here, who's the opposition leader in New South Wales, who is proudly a centrist and says, oh, the party needs to go to the centre and dump this and dump that, and basically just run again, as we all say on this program, as Labor-lite. Well, Mark Speakman, no one believes that he will ever be premier of this state.
If I lived in New South Wales, my vote would be going to the Mins. Why would you vote for someone who is half pregnant, someone who doesn't actually have a principled position? At least with Labor, even when they go a little bit wacky with some of their policy positions, it's what they believe in. When you've got the Liberals being Labor-lite, it is inauthentic as well as being weak and unprincipled.
I think that's the key point. There are 2 key points. One, as James was suggesting, oppositions must oppose, not for their own sake, but for the sake of the Australian people. We, the people of Australia, have a democratic system that demands an adversarial relationship between the 2 major parties. Otherwise, we are being shortchanged. And that's what just happened in the election last weekend. We were shortchanged. We were ripped off. We were let down by the Conservative side of politics who did not put our case forward. And that is a disgrace, and that must not be allowed to happen. And my fear here is that the Liberals are going to do exactly the same thing. I don't know Susan Ley, Susan with 2 S's or however many S's she's got in her name because she's into numerology. I don't know much about her. Other than she's never stood out as someone that I feel attracted to from a kind of conservative point of view. The Liberals must offer us, they failed every time, and I'll be talking about this more later at 10 o'clock, every time they put forward these Labor-lite centrist candidates, they lose big time or just narrowly scrape in. It's not good enough. We have to have a conservative leadership of both parties in the coalition. We must have Matt Canavan leading the Nationals. He's the greatest communicator they have. He's one of the most popular politicians I know of. He's clear, articulate. He stands up for positions that people believe in. He's a fighter. He's from the bush. He's from Queensland. Similarly, Angus Taylor and Jacinta Price as a ticket together would be fantastic. You've got the one guy who's got the banking background. You've got the girl from the bush who comes from the most extraordinary background up there in the Northern Territory. What a terrific ticket for Australians to get behind. We don't need another Canberra kind of focus group driven leader of the Libs, because it will end in the usual disaster that they keep offering up.
Can we just say about Susan Ley? Do we still pronounce her name the same despite
it's
the extra
Susan,
S
but there's an extra
added?
S because numerologically that is good luck or something.
I mean, I don't think. Yeah, I have some questions about that. I think
So
that
you
goes
should
to
have.
her judgment.
So you should have.
I just think on every key issue where I've noticed her, she has started off in the wrong position after, and then has been persuaded or forced or, I don't know, looked at the polling
groups.
and the focus groups and changed her position. That's not being authentic. That's not being principled. I have more respect for her if she stuck to her original positions. On The Voice, she was pro, then she was against. When it comes to the Palestine-Israel issue, again, we've seen a bit of a flip-flopping there. When it came just last year, we had that deeply flawed activist report, the Gender Wage Gap report, which Janet Albrechtsen ripped apart, I ripped apart. We had senators ripping it apart. Who was standing there saying this is a really important document and corporations have to take note of it? Susan Ley. She's the only one who seems to kind of miss the glaring holes in these activist reports. I think she just is far too comfortable playing identity politics, playing those games. I don't think this is what the Liberal Party need. They've got a massive rebuild. They need to have someone in the role who's up to the task, and I don't think she's up to the task.